Hello and welcome to the OLAY manufacturing facility. Today I'm excited to show you how we create the iconic Regenerous cream, ensuring the highest quality standards.
In the world of skincare, rumors often travel faster than facts. One of the most persistent claims surrounding OLAY is the allegation that its creams are derived from animal bones, a statement shocking enough to instantly provoke discomfort, ethical concern,
This shipment is cleared
and
for
even
cold
fear.
storage.
But before
moving to
accepting
zone
or
4.
rejecting such a claim, we must ask a more important question. How did this rumor begin in the first place? And why has it been so difficult to erase? The origin of this rumor can be traced back to a fundamental misunderstanding of scientific language. Terms like collagen, peptides, amino acids, or protein complexes sound technical, distant, and for many consumers, vaguely linked to animals. In everyday thinking, collagen is often associated with bone broth, gelatin, or animal cartilage. From there, it takes only a small leap, especially on social media, for someone to conclude that if a cream boosts collagen, it must somehow contain ingredients taken directly from animal bones. The rumor does not need evidence. It only needs to sound plausible. Social platforms amplify this effect. A single post framed as a hidden truth the beauty industry doesn't want you to know can be shared thousands of times within hours. The more shocking the claim, the more engagement it receives. Over time, repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity is often mistaken for truth. Very few people stop to ask whether the person spreading the information has scientific knowledge, access to manufacturing data, or any responsibility for accuracy. The rumor survives not because it is proven, but because it is emotionally effective. Cultural and ethical sensitivity also play a significant role. In many communities, animal-derived ingredients raise serious concerns, religious, moral, or environmental. When people hear the words animal bones, they do not think about chemistry or biotechnology. They think about slaughter, exploitation, and secrecy. This emotional reaction creates a perfect environment for suspicion. Once fear is triggered, rational explanations struggle to compete. Another reason the rumor persists lies in the gap between industry science and consumer understanding. Cosmetic chemistry has evolved rapidly over the last few decades, but public knowledge has not always kept pace. Many consumers are unaware that modern skincare relies heavily on laboratory synthesis and bioengineering rather than raw natural extraction. When brands communicate using scientific terminology without clear explanation, silence fills the gap and rumors rush in to occupy. There is also a deeper psychological element at work. People tend to distrust large, global corporations, especially those associated with personal health and the body. A face cream is not just a product. It is something applied daily, absorbed by the skin, and linked to identity and self-worth. Any suggestion of secrecy or unethical practice feels like a personal violation. In that sense, the rumor is not only about ingredients, it is about control, transparency, and trust. Yet here is the crucial point often overlooked. A rumor does not need to be accurate to feel convincing. It only needs to align with existing fears and incomplete knowledge. When scientific complexity meets emotional storytelling, the latter usually wins. And so the idea of animal bones in skincare continues to circulate, detached from evidence, but firmly rooted in imagination. But if this rumor is built on misunderstanding and fear, what happens when we look beyond the words and examine the science itself? Are these ingredients truly what people think they are, or has modern biotechnology quietly replaced the very practices consumers are afraid of? And more importantly, what if the real story behind these ingredients is far more advanced, controlled, and ethical than the rumor suggests?
Clear Bay 4, we need that
To understand why
OLAY
the
shipment
rumor
moved
about
now.
animal bones
Copy that,
collapses
moving
under
in.
scrutiny, we must move away from imagination and step into the reality of modern cosmetic science. When discussing the ingredients used in skincare products from OLAY, the key issue is not what people assume, but how these ingredients are actually created. And here, the difference between past practices and present technology could not be more dramatic. One of the most misunderstood elements is collagen-related technology. Many consumers believe that if a product claims to boost collagen, it must contain collagen itself, and if collagen exists, it must come from animals. This logic sounds reasonable on the surface, but scientifically, it is outdated. In contemporary skincare, applying whole collagen molecules to the skin is largely ineffective. Collagen molecules are too large to penetrate the skin barrier. Cosmetic scientists know this well. Instead of adding collagen from any source, modern formulations focus on signaling molecules, most notably peptides, that encourage the skin to produce its own collagen naturally. So what are peptides really? Peptides are short chains of amino acids, the same basic building blocks found in all living organisms. Crucially, these amino acids are no longer harvested from animal tissue. They are synthesized in laboratories using highly controlled biochemical processes. Through fermentation, enzymatic reactions, and precision synthesis, scientists can create peptides that are identical in function but purer, safer, and more stable than anything extracted from animal material. No bones, no cartilage, no slaughter involved. This shift did not happen for ethical reasons alone, although ethics played an important role. Laboratory synthesis allows for consistency. Every batch is the same. There are no variations caused by animal age, diet, disease, or contamination. From a safety perspective, this is a major advantage. When a skincare product is designed for millions of people across different skin types and sensitivities, unpredictability is unacceptable. Synthetic and bioengineered ingredients solve that problem. Another commonly misunderstood ingredient is glycerin, often mistakenly assumed to be animal-derived. In reality, the glycerin used in modern cosmetics is typically plant-based or synthetically produced. It is valued for its ability to attract and retain moisture, and its production method is clearly documented and regulated. Again, the confusion arises not from facts, but from assumptions tied to older industrial practices that no longer represent the current state of the industry. It is also important to understand how ingredient lists are regulated. Cosmetic brands operating globally must comply with strict labeling laws. Ingredients must be listed using standardized international nomenclature. If an ingredient were derived from animal bone, it would not only raise ethical questions, it would raise legal ones. Such information would be subject to disclosure, inspection, and verification by regulatory authorities. The idea that a major brand could secretly use animal bones without documentation ignores how tightly controlled this industry truly is. Why then does the rumor continue to feel believable? Because the processes behind these ingredients are invisible. Consumers do not see fermentation tanks, molecular synthesis, or quality control laboratories. They see a small jar of cream and a long list of unfamiliar words. When knowledge is absent, imagination fills the gap, and imagination often reaches for the most dramatic explanation. What is rarely discussed is that many of the technologies used in skincare today are similar to those used in medicine. The same principles applied to producing vaccines, insulin, or antibiotics-controlled environments. Non-animal synthesis, rigorous purification are also applied to cosmetic ingredients. This is not a step backward into primitive extraction methods, but a step forward into precision science. And yet, this raises an uncomfortable question. If the science is so advanced and the ingredients so clearly documented, why do brands struggle to communicate this effectively to the public? Is the language of science too distant? Or has the industry underestimated how deeply consumers care about origin, ethics, and transparency? Perhaps the real issue is not what is inside the product, but how little of the journey from laboratory to lotion is ever explained. And if that journey were fully revealed, every reaction, every safety check, every ethical consideration, would the rumor finally disappear? Or would people still choose the simpler, scarier story over the complex truth? Because as we move deeper into the production process, one thing becomes increasingly clear. The reality behind these ingredients is far more controlled, deliberate, and scientific than the myth suggests. But will that reality be enough to change what people believe? To truly dismantle the myth of animal bones in skincare, we have to go deeper than ingredients and step inside the manufacturing process itself. This is the point where imagination collides with reality, and where rumors, no matter how dramatic, begin to fall apart under the weight of procedure, documentation, and technology. Because when we talk about how products from OLAY are actually made, we are no longer in the realm of assumptions. we are in a world governed by systems that leave little room for secrecy. Modern cosmetic manufacturing bears almost no resemblance to the way people casually imagine it. There are no open vats, no manual mixing, no unidentified raw materials being poured in by hand. Instead, production takes place in highly controlled industrial environments designed to meet international good manufacturing practice standards. Every stage is automated, monitored, and recorded. Ingredients arrive with certificates of analysis detailing their origin, method of synthesis, purity level, and compliance with safety regulations. Without this documentation, an ingredient does not even cross the factory threshold. The process begins with formulation batching. Precise quantities of pre-approved ingredients are measured digitally and transferred into sealed mixing systems. These systems are closed, meaning they are never exposed to outside air once production begins. Temperature, pressure, and mixing speed are all computer controlled, not guessed or adjusted by feel. In such an environment, the idea of introducing raw animal material, especially something as biologically unstable as bone, is not just unethical. It is operationally impossible. Next comes emulsification, one of the most critical steps in cream production. This is where water-based and oil-based components are bonded together into a stable formula. The margins for error are extremely small. Even a minor inconsistency can cause separation, spoilage, or reduced shelf life. Animal-derived raw materials, particularly bones, would introduce uncontrollable variables, bacteria risk, protein degradation, odor, and instability. No modern cosmetic production line would tolerate that level of risk, especially when safer, lab-engineered alternatives exist. Once the formula is created, it does not move straight to packaging. It enters a rigorous quality control phase. Samples are taken and tested for microbial contamination, chemical stability, pH balance, texture consistency, and performance under different environmental conditions. These tests are not optional. A single failed parameter can halt an entire production batch, costing time, resources, and reputation. In this context, the notion that a controversial, undisclosed ingredient could pass through unnoticed becomes increasingly unrealistic. Packaging itself is another controlled operation. Filling machines are calibrated to exact volumes, operating in sterile conditions. Finished products are sealed, labeled, and coded for traceability. Every jar or bottle can be traced back to its specific batch, production date, and ingredient sources. If a safety concern were ever raised, manufacturers could identify and recall affected units with precision. This level of traceability exists precisely because regulators assume that mistakes or misconduct can happen, and systems are designed to catch them. And this brings us to an important point. Manufacturing facilities are not private islands. They are subject to inspections from regulatory bodies across multiple countries. Audits can be scheduled or unannounced. Inspectors review ingredient logs, supplier records, test results, and production protocols. Any discrepancy between declared ingredients and actual use would not only trigger recalls, but legal consequences. For a global brand, the cost of such exposure would be catastrophic. So why does the rumor persist, even when the manufacturing reality leaves no room for it? Perhaps because most consumers never see this side of the process. Factories are hidden behind walls, procedures buried in technical documents, and quality control data rarely makes headlines. What people do see is a finished product and a viral post claiming a shocking secret. But here is the uncomfortable truth. The production process is boring. It is methodical, repetitive, and obsessively precise. It lacks the drama that rumors thrive on. And in a media landscape driven by attention, boring truths struggle to compete with sensational lies, which leads to a final, unsettling question. If transparency already exists at every technical level, but the public still chooses to believe the rumor, is the problem really the manufacturing process, or is it the way we, as consumers, decide what feels true? After a product is formulated and manufactured, many people assume the journey is nearly complete. In reality, this is where some of the most intense scrutiny begins. Safety testing, Regulatory compliance and ethical oversight form an invisible barrier that no skincare product can cross without meeting strict global standards. For a brand operating on the scale of OLAY, this barrier is not symbolic, it is structural, legal, and unavoidable. Every finished formula must undergo a battery of safety assessments before it is approved for market release. These evaluations are designed to answer one fundamental question: is this product safe for repeated use on human skin? To reach that answer, scientists conduct dermatological testing, irritation and sensitivity assessments, and long-term stability studies. Products are exposed to heat, cold, light, and time to ensure they do not degrade into harmful byproducts. At each stage, data is collected, analyzed, and documented. Crucially, these tests are performed not only internally, but often in collaboration with independent laboratories. Third-party testing exists to remove bias and increase accountability. The results are reviewed by toxicologists whose sole responsibility is to identify risk. If even a minor concern is raised, the formula is revised or rejected entirely. In such a system, the presence of a controversial or undeclared animal-derived ingredient would immediately stand out, not because of rumor, but because of chemistry. Ethical standards add another layer of control. Over the past 2 decades, consumer demand has reshaped the cosmetics industry. Transparency, cruelty-free practices, and responsible sourcing are no longer optional marketing points. They are expectations. Brands are required to track where ingredients come from, how they are produced, and whether their use aligns with local and international ethical guidelines. This is especially important in regions where religious or cultural restrictions apply. An ingredient derived from animal bone would not only raise ethical questions, but would potentially exclude entire markets. Regulatory agencies reinforce these ethical pressures with legal authority. Different countries impose different requirements, but they all share a common principle: consumer protection. Ingredient disclosure laws require that materials be listed accurately and consistently.
This lasagna is incredible,
Misrepresentation
honey.
is treated
You
as a
really
serious
outdid
offense,
yourself.
with
I'm glad you
consequences
like it.
ranging from fines
It was
to
a new
product
recipe.
bans and public recalls. For a global skincare brand, non-compliance in one region can trigger scrutiny in many others. The system is designed to discourage secrecy by making transparency the safer option. What often goes unnoticed is how conservative this process actually is. Innovation is slow, deliberate, and heavily filtered. New ingredients can take years to approve, even when they are synthetically produced and well-studied. This caution exists because skincare is not superficial. It interacts with the body's largest